Welcome to Business Over Brew. Very pleased to be joined by my friend Asher Benrubi, also known as The Smash. And a little different show. We usually talk to business owners on this show, but we're going to talk to a guy who has helped a tremendous amount of business owners throughout his career from an advertising standpoint. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but I thought we'd start with maybe you can tell everybody why I'm wearing this shirt today.
When I first came to the station, I nicknamed Nick the Commander because, number one, he runs the operation. Number two, he just looks like a square-jawed American, like G.I. Joe, Commando Joe type of guy. So I named him the Commander because of the fact that he commands, and at the same time, he looks like a guy who would be called a commander. Then, Washington Redskins, who I did a lot of work for when I was working in D.C., changed their name to the Commanders. And so I got to get a Commander's t-shirt for, unfortunately it says Washington, so he's touched by Washington. Yeah. So he is the Commander. He's got a Commander's t-shirt and it fits him well.
Thank you.
I got to say, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the gift. Thanks.
Yeah, I got a friend who works over there and I asked for a jersey. He said, no, we don't give those out yet.
Oh, well. This is nice, though. I appreciate it. So,
right on.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Varia, Macedonia, which at that time was a part of Greece. That's a country. And so I was born there. Now it's Macedonia itself. It's its own state. But I consider myself Greek. My mom was a Greek Orthodox. My dad was a Greek Jew. In the old days, a lot of the Jews, after the Inquisition in Spain, came and migrated up through Albania and everything, came on, landed in Macedonia. And over all the centuries, here they are. And so I grew up Greek for the first 2 years. Then we took the boat and came to America.
And talk us through your American journey. I know you've lived several places throughout the country.
Oh, yeah. My mom tells a good story. When we first came to America, over to Ellis Island, the people who were signing you up to be an American, by the way, legal citizen, thank you. And so my mom didn't speak any Greek. My dad didn't speak English. My dad didn't speak English. And so they asked, my mom tells the story, they asked, do you guys want to live in Indianapolis or Seattle? Those were the two cities that they were moving people to at that particular point in time. And so my mom, in Greek, polis means city. So she thought Indianapolis was a city that has some Greeks in it, so she picked Indianapolis. Now, we're from the mountains out there in Macedonia, and she said, once I figured everything out, had I known that it was Seattle with all the mountains and all the forests and everything, I would have picked Seattle, but back then I only knew Indianapolis. So I grew up in Indianapolis, and it was quite an experience because in the house we were Greeks and we spoke Greek and we ate Greek and we lived Greek. And then when me and or my sisters got out of the house, we stepped into America and we didn't have to live by the Greek rules and everything because there's a rule that you have to live under your parents when you're in that situation. And of course, they were taking care of us and everything because we were strangers in a strange land. But
a little stricter maybe at home.
Oh, real strict, yeah, real strict. But when it was daylight and we were allowed to go out, then we became Americans and we were joyous in that aspect too.
Music has been obviously a huge part of your life. Did that start at an early age?
Music started for me at an early age because back then, Mom and Pop would make us go to sleep like about 7 o'clock. And I had my own room, my sisters had their room. And there used to be a thing called a transistor radio. And so I had me one, and I would hide it under my pillow. But I'm sure my parents knew about it, they didn't say that. But I hid it under my pillow, and at night, I'd put on WIFE radio, or I think it was WGN or one of those stations out of Chicago would blast in too. And I would listen to all the music and everything. So I became a lover of Motown and rock and roll in general. And then the Beatles showed up and their music was fantastic on the radio. But when I got to see them for the first time and saw the furor that they put the audience in, and women screaming for them and everything, I thought, man, I want some of this. And the next day, I took my hair, I had a nappy Jewish head of hair, and I took it and I combed it down like that so I had bangs. I was like a stone cold idiot, but I went to school thinking I was a Beatle. I was 13 at the time. And so I got into it after I saw the Beatles, then the Rolling Stones, the Animals, Dave Clark 5, all them. And then the American groups started coming around, like Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, Gary Lewis and the Playboys. In all honesty, all the good stuff we played, my mix 94.3. The best mix of the greatest hits of the 60s and 70s.
Right, yeah.
And
Good station.
Yeah. And so I became a rock and roller through that. And I started my first band in October of 1967. I was the junior class president, and they would not allow me any money to hire a band. I wanted to hire this Motown band in Indianapolis that was called the Delvados, but they wouldn't give me any money to hire the Delvados, who were the band. They were like the Temptations. So me and my buddies, we used to go to the Jewish Community Center out there on Hoover Road, and we would, back then they forced you to shower before and after you went in the pool. You had to shower, a bunch of naked showerers. Anyway, we showered, and we showered in that big open enclosure enclave there, and the echo made us sound really good. So we started a band off the echo, and we did our first gig. We knew 6 songs. And we played for an hour, and we played the songs over again, and we played them over again, and the kids loved it, and thus developed the first band, Frenchie and the Weewees. And that was a magnificent band. It was an ultimate garage band before garage bands were cool.
I can't imagine that anybody other than you came up with that name.
Well, the Weewees, because back then Frenchie, when you said wee-wee, meant yes, yes.
Right.
But also wee-weeing, because back then it was the early days of the civil rights movement and movements in general. And so you're like, we're peeing on all the establishment and everything. So Frenchie and the Weewees. So that was the play on words there. And we got a couple of years out of that. I went to college and we started a new band off of the Weewees into college. And that was Pure Funk, which was a white soul group. And then after that, we started writing our own material. And we kind of started up on the circuit with Styx, REO, just all those bands of that era. And we got a recording contract, and we got to open up for a lot of people. They got, like REO, for example, out of this region.
Right.
They got
Champaign, Illinois?
the break. And we didn't. They did, but we were what was called a regional hit operation, because we were played on stations in Cleveland and Indianapolis, where we're from. We even played on KSHE in those early days. So after that, I got into the radio business, and that's where I've stayed ever since. But I've always had a band in every town, and that's because I love doing the band thing, but also it's a magnificent secondary form of income, so that when things fall through in the radio business, you always got something to fall back on. A lot of guys never did, and so they found financial hardship. I luckily was able to float along because of my bands.
Side note, as you would say, personal opinion, of course.
Of course.
But I think one of the greatest, you mentioned your hair, I think one of the greatest injustices to our society, seeing some older pictures of you, is that you no longer have it. I mean, because it was, I think as your son said, glorious.
Yes,
the best
I think he
word
did
for
say
it.
it was glorious.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
that was magnificent.
So your first radio gig, as I remember, was overnight gig in Indianapolis?
Yeah, that was WNAP radio, and I was well renowned just from the band Pure Funk and then Roadmaster. And so they were having Friday nights with Celebrity DJ Night. Mayer'd come in and play his favorite songs, Indianapolis 500 drivers, Indiana Pacers, all that. So they invited me in one night. And I brought a crate Peaches crate. Back then, Peaches was the big record store. And so I brought a Peaches crate of all my albums, not all of them, but I mean just a bunch of albums. And so the way I figured it was, when I was with my band, I sang a song, told a joke, sang a song, told a joke.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, play a song, tell a joke, play a song. Only this time the songs were the Eagles, was Elton John, was the Beatles.
Right.
And I told a joke afterwards. And they came back to me afterwards and said, listen, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to come and be on the station. And so they offered me midnight to 6. And I, at that time, working with the band, we tried to be rock stars. We're traveling all over the country, trying to get our records sold, to get a break and everything. Coming back after 7 days, maybe 7, 8, 9 gigs in that time, coming back with $50 a piece. These guys offered me for a week $90. Plus, it was midnight to 6. There wasn't any suits around, so I'd have to talk to any of those guys.
Right.
And
No
so
commanders.
I took it. No commanders of that day. So I took the gig and got the hang of it. And then I started studying the science of it, along with the art of delivering good information and or comedy. And so I turned me into the Smash, and here I is today.
Was that your first on-air name, The Smash, or?
Well, I was, I for some reason could never call anybody I ever worked with by their real names. Like I call you the Commander.
You said earlier, you said Nick, and I was kind of surprised. I thought he just called me the Commander the whole time because you had
That's
no idea
right.
what my first name was. But
So I always named the guys in the bands with phony names, stage names. But I couldn't come up with one for myself. But then I did. At that time, I weighed about 350 pounds and had all that hair. And I named myself, because I used to love Nat King Cole. And one of the big movies was about the big gorilla. So I named myself Nat King Kong. And I went by Nat King Kong for about 6 months until Toby Myers, who wound up being the bass player for Mellencamp. We were playing in Chicago one night. He had, we were sharing rooms. He had that bed, I had that bed. He woke me up in the middle of a sleep, which means about 7 a.m. And because we didn't go to sleep till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning there, because you'd gig till 6 a.m. sometimes. Anyway, he said, I got a name for you. What is it? The Mighty Adam, A-D-A-M, Smasher. He spelled it all out. I said, wow, that's pretty good. So I went back to sleep, woke up the next day, I was the Mighty Adam Smasher. I was doing a gig in D.C. I did a gig that I called the Freebird Dance Contest. And one of the big songs was Freebird. Everybody was breakdancing back then. So I thought, man, if somebody could breakdance to Freebird, that'd be quite a sight to see.
Sure.
So I had the Freebird Dance Competition and hosted it and everything. And guys were there breakdancing to Freebird. Because, you know, Freebird is slow, and then faster. Right. By the end, they were like spinning, whirling dervishes, man, on the floor. It was wild. And anyway, some old man.
There's got to be some video of that somewhere.
I don't know. Back then, nobody took videos,
Right, yeah.
man.
Now.
Yeah, now there'd be plenty.
Right.
But some old guy, was probably an adult, as I became an adult, came up to me and said, son, that was a smash. And I thought to myself, well, that's better than Adam Smasher, because Adam Smasher is more of a caricature, whereas Smash is kind of like a nickname, like Bubba or something like that.
Right.
So I'm your buddy, the Smash, and here we are.
That was probably, what, 30, 40 years ago, maybe?
That was 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was going by Adam Smasher in my early days at DC 101.
Now, you were a good athlete in high school.
I thought I was.
Didn't we all?
Yeah. So, I played basketball. I played football. I was on the track team. And I did track and tennis. And I never...
God, that'd be a sight to see.
Oh,
I
yeah. Well, I came in second in the shot put in the citywide tennis. I came in second in the... not tennis, it's in the track.
Track, right.
And then in tennis, I came in second. So I never hit that. I never got that number one shot though, man. That was very unfortunate. But I fancied myself a good athlete.
And went to Indiana University
Went to Indiana
to be an
University.
attorney, right? That was the
I
game
went to
plan?
DePaul University
Oh, okay.
for the first semester. And it was so hard because I was studying pre-med because I wanted to make my parents proud of me. And it was so hard, all that chemistry and everything. I said, I am out of here. So I transferred to Indiana University and took up law, figuring I would like to be a judge because I hate criminality. And I hate liars and despicable types and all. I said, okay, I'm gonna be a judge. I'm gonna put these guys in jail. But I got bit by the rock and roll bug and just got into rock and roll. And we had like the number one band in Bloomington, Indiana. And we played all over the Midwest as Pure Funk and then Roadmaster.
What did your Greek strict parents think about your rock star choice?
My mom and papa were ashamed of me. They were ashamed of me. They were even ashamed of me when I was on the radio until I got my first TV gig.
Oh, well,
And
that's
then
TV
I'm on
people are
TV,
important. I mean,
and they can see me on TV. This is my boy. This is my sonny boy. And ever since then, I was like appreciated by mom and pop.
you've worked at a lot of markets, Indianapolis, and then on to DC from there.
Indianapolis to DC. I worked New York for about a year. St. Louis, went to Phoenix, back to St. Louis.
Right. Talk about the.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the KC days because I think that's what most people watching will remember you
Sure.
from. It was really a pretty magical time at a unbelievably popular St. Louis station.
Well, yeah. It was
Some really talented people there with you.
very much so. And that was a day that talent was somewhat appreciated. But I had worked with J.C. Corcoran in Washington, D.C. He was on air, plus he was promotions director. He and I became friends. He took off for Buffalo and did a stint in Buffalo for a while, and then got the gig at KC. And then, according to the stories, they started mistreating him. And so he left and went to a station, KSD. So I get a call from the guys who own KC. They own a station in Indianapolis, knew me from there. They said, would you come and compete against JC? Well, I was like one of the heavy cats in DC, man. I didn't want to leave that. Plus it was afternoons. I didn't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to go to work. So I turned him down a couple of times, and finally it winds up in radio, in those days at least, you needed to be the morning guy if you want to make the money. You made good money as an afternoon guy, but the money was the morning.
Right.
And of course, you got big notoriety and all that kind of stuff. You had a successful show. So my wife had just had 2 babies. They happened to be mine. And
That's good.
that's good. And so I had decided to leave DC 101. I had taken the job in New York City that I was offered in 1982. I couldn't take it because I had taken the job in DC, and that was the job at MTV. This guy, Mark Goodman, who was a VJ, was leaving. Adam Curry was coming. You cover that interim period? Sure. That interim period was the period that it took to get me to St. Louis. When I got offered the KC job, I called JC, and we talked many times. I called him. I told him, listen, I'm coming to compete against you. Because he told me the whole story of why he had left KC, and I believe him. Anyway, I got the whole story, and I said, well, I'm coming to compete against you. He said, what are you doing? I'm taking the job at KC. Click. I didn't talk to him for 6 years. When the gig shifted and I left KC, we got back together, and you've seen him at the station a couple times.
Yeah.
So he's was and continues to be a really good friend. I admire him because of his tenacity with his work. I got a way and a system of doing the smash delivery, but he has a way and a system of doing things that make sure that he works. one of the things I admire him for is something I never could. I got tapes and tapes and tapes in my storage unit somewhere, wherever that is. And I don't know what any of those tapes are. Some of them are labeled, some of them are not. But
We should have Lolo go through those.
oh, he's steal them all, man. You know Lolo.
Well, we'll archive.
Oh, okay. Now, Lolo would be good because he knows what to listen for. So, anyway, JC, has almost what I call the Dewey Decimal System. He knows where everything is,
Right.
all that stuff. If you ask me to put in an interview with Ozzie Smith, let's say, well, I got plenty of interviews with Ozzie Smith. I don't know where they are.
Right.
And I ain't saying it's the wrong way. I kind of don't care where they are because I don't do that anymore. I do this now.
Right.
And this is a different quest than was that quest in that day. And so that's one of the reasons I admire him. Stern, the same thing. Stern's got people working for him doing all that stuff, but JC does it by himself.
Right.
I worked with Stern for a couple of years as his announcer before I got to DC 101. I auditioned for the gig at DC 101 with Stern. Got the gig. I said, the reason we're giving you this gig is because you didn't try to outshine Howard. And I said, well, I know how to be a second banana along with being top banana.
Right.
And so got to DC, my wife and I were at the hotel waking up, went on DC 101, and Stern is bad-mouthing the general manager who hired me, who hired him, bad-mouthing him to the max. And I looked at my wife and I said, if this guy don't get fired, I don't know what. So I get in for my 10 a.m. appointment to tell me what to do and all this kind of stuff. So Mr. LeBar, that's the general manager, he was calling Godfrey LeBar, Goff LeBar. He was calling Godfrey Goof LeBoof. And so they said, can you wait for a moment? Mr. LeBar is talking with Howard. I said, sure. 2.5 hours later, they come out and get me. I'm sitting in there with Mr. LeBar. He used to smoke these big, thick cigars, man. It was like George Burns. He looked just almost like George Burns. And he said, you're starting tomorrow. Starting what? Morning show. Morning show? I was here, I'm hired here for afternoons. Starting in the morning, smashing in the afternoons. I just fired Howard. I thought, oh, I started the next morning. Oh, it was terrible. I started the next morning, because I'm a rock and roller, I don't wake up at 3 in the morning. I started it, and the calls came in blaming me for the dismissal of Stern over there. Since then, he and I have, we don't have one of these friendships where I see him every day or anything like that, but we're friendly. And they call me, they usually call me about once a year just to check in and see what I'm doing and see if I have anything I might want to put on the show over there. I don't, because they do a different kind of show than what I do. And so I think I went off on a tangent there, didn't I, Commander?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I was just going to say two things that I wasn't listening. I was just going to say.
Who is?
I was just going to say two things one thing that I admired from you from afar before we knew each other was just how much fun you always seemed to be having, whether that was on the radio or, and now getting to know you, I know that was an act, but so great job by you. But the thing, one of the things I've admired most about you since you came to my mix is your relationship with your advertisers. A lot of people are talent that endorse businesses. It's kind of a necessary evil to them.
Sure.
They'd rather not do it, but they know it pays the bills.
Yeah.
You really seem to enjoy the interaction with them and getting to know them and learning as much as you can about their business.
Well, yeah, that way when you're on the air, you're not a phony when you're selling a product or a service to the people. They got to believe in you. And so you try to get, for the longest time, you know, a Chevy dealer wanted me to represent Chevy. I said, okay, these are the days that they would do this. Let me have a car.
Sure.
I wasn't looking to have it. I mean, just to drive for a year or whatever it is, however long I'm gonna be with you. But no, we don't do that. I said, well, I can't roll in on a Ford and tell people to buy Chevy.
Right.
And that's just the policy I've always had. Probably lost a lot of business that way, but you know, I feel better about it because when I roll in telling people to go buy at a Ford place, it's because I'm driving a Ford, So I believe in the product. I know, for example, I know insurance, so got my man G-Force over there, so I know how to talk insurance for him. I know how to talk real estate. I worked as a real estate agent for Gundaker for a couple years between radio gigs, sold houses. So I know what Matt Horn is doing. And hardware, I know that with the guys over there at in East
Fisher
Alton,
Lumber.
Fisher Lumber. Gerard Fisher, who I was always thinking about what I do. And then I love
We're
to
going to
eat.
get all the Fishers on.
Yeah.
That's kind of our business plan.
So I love to eat, and got a couple of great restaurants in Martin's Tunes and Eats, and also.
Well, you'll appreciate this. I called Red's Auto Parts the other day.
Oh yeah, I got to go over there.
They must have seen the radio station.
Couple weeks, yeah.
The radio station number on the caller ID, and they answered the phone and said, "Smash, smash, digging the smash." And I had to say, well, I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but this is actually Nick. So,
but Gulf Shores is another great restaurant So I only advertise those that I believe in, and I don't accept, even if somebody might set it up, I don't accept until I go talk to the people, see how they do their business, and see what their philosophy is as far as dealing with people. Because if I send people to a place for a product or a service, and they get treated wrong, then in reality, that comes back on me. I'm the guy who told you to go there.
Right.
So I'll make sure those folks are Smash representatives, as am I their representative.
Joe's giving me the wrap it up sign, but actually he's not giving me the wrap it up sign. Well, he says keep going. So, well, then I was going to ask you about, you've met so many celebrities. You've got a pretty good friendship with John Mellencamp. Talk about how you guys met and that friendship.
Yeah, Mellencamp, a lot of people hate him because he's tough. When he was a kid, now he's about 3 years younger than me, but when he was a kid, we used to play at what was called a teen canteen. That was like a teen nightclub.
Right.
It was usually in a church, in their basement, in the cafeteria. So we would go to Seymour, Indiana. Seymour, Indiana is all the quarry people live down there because they got the quarries and the stone cutters down there. And him and his buddies would come and watch us at the teen canteen and just stand off the side. I'd never forget. And I would talk to him a little bit, but when we're done with the gig, we go on back to Indianapolis. But then when we were playing at IU, he had started a band called the Mason Brothers. And Mason Brothers, because they were stone cutters and they were Masons. And so Mason Brothers would play like at this fraternity house, and across the street would be Pure Funk. And so we would stagger our sets so that we could go watch them for about 15, 20 minutes. They could come watch us for about 15, 20 minutes. And so we became friends off of that. I was even his booking agent for a while there. So I owned a booking agency in Indianapolis in the early 70s. And one day he comes to me and said, "I'm going to New York." "Oh yeah, what you going to do?" "I'm going to try to sell some of my music and see about being a rock and roll guy." I said, "Okay." So he came back, I say about a year later. He came back, and now David Bowie's manager is his manager. And they changed his name. I said, "What did they change your name to?" "Johnny Cougar." I said, "Oh." We all started laughing at it.
Right, I'm sure.
And I said, "Cougar? Why Cougar? Are you like a cat or what?" He said, "No, they just said that name would be easier to sell than Mellencamp." "Oh, yeah. It's easier to sell than Asher Benrubi, I know that."
Right.
So he went on and, of course, had first big hit was really by Pat Benatar. "I Need a Lover Who Won't Drive Me Crazy." Pat Benatar had that, and then he was able to take it and even make it his own because it was a little different sound. And he just always was nice to me. I went on and, the steps in the radio business, and always would invite me to come to his shows. Towards the end, it wasn't him calling me, it was his people calling me, but that's show business. And so I would go to his shows. He would come on my radio shows. I don't bother him anymore because I just don't bother him anymore. He calls me maybe every couple of years. And the funny thing about this guy is that he's not all that big about being a rock and roll star. However, I caught him doing some rock and roll star stuff once, and we laugh about it to this day, man. It's the Enterprise Center, and the dressing room for him, his own dressing room, has this hall. Here's the door. Has this hall and then the room. So I'm walking down the hall, and at the end of the hall is Elaine, his wife, at the time. And so I'm coming down. I said, "Hi, Elaine, how you doing?" And she rolls her eyes like that and goes like that with her eyes pointing that direction. So I go, and I turn, and he had just had a heart attack a month ago. And he's on a treadmill for his heart attack, smoking a cigarette. And I looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" "I don't give a shit about this kind of stuff," all that guy. And another one, man, because we honestly are just hillbillies from Indiana, and we've gone to where we've gone to, and he was playing in Riverport one time. So they send for me at my seat to come get me, and said, "Wait a moment, we'll let John know you're here." Okay, so I'm standing out here. Here's the dressing room door, and it's a big square room. Here's the door. So they open the door, and nobody else allowed to go in but me. So they open the door, and the room is black, except for candles all around the room. And he's on a massage table getting a massage. So he's like this, and he looks up at me and just starts laughing. And I started laughing at him. I said, "I'll talk to you later," because we're just a couple of hillbillies from Indiana. And look, this guy's getting a massage before he does the fraternity gig, you know?
Yeah.
So he and I became good friends. He tried to get me a part on Broadway, I'd say about 5 years ago. He and this guy, Stephen King, who's an author, they wrote a story. I can't remember the name of it. The Dead Boys of Darlington County or something like that. And
Like Stephen King, the one that wrote?
the author, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So him and Mellencamp wrote this book. And they were looking for a Burl Ives, Big Daddy type character to be the father of these two boys who got murdered, but we don't know whether Dad murdered them or somebody else murdered them. They wanted me to be the father because there were songs in this thing too. So you've got murders going on, but people are singing about it and everything.
It's a murder musical.
Exactly.
I mean, you have a lot of those.
And so I auditioned for the part and everything. The producers were there in New York and everything, but I didn't get the part. They gave it to, you remember a show on TV called Deadwood, one of the guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was a short guy, but he had jet black hair and everything. He's British type of guy, but he wasn't there. Anyway, he's the one who got the gig.
That's ridiculous.
And so, it was ridiculous. And so that was my last encounter with gigging with Mellencamp. So I just see him if he's out there anymore, but I got a lot of stories, man. I know a lot of
You do.
guys.
One of my favorite days at the radio station was when you were doing the afternoon show on WBGZ, on the Big Z.
Yep.
The Big Z, as you like to say. And JC and Gary Bennett walked in.
That was a good surprise.
And it was just, I kind of had to pinch myself.
Yeah, it was a good
in
surprise,
terms of just, here we are in our little Alton studio. And got three legends of St. Louis radio. My first...
that was a good surprise, man.
First interaction with you in my life was, I think, WrestleMania 4, maybe.
Oh, no kidding.
And it was at the Kiel Center.
Yeah.
And we went, and it wasn't there. They just had it on a big screen.
Yeah.
And you said, "Hey, when they turn all these lights down, all you guys up on the upper deck, come on down to the lower bowl."
That's right.
So
I always used to do that.
I was kind of a fan from that day.
I always used to tell people to do that.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but if you could listen to one musical artist, if you only could listen to one musical artist the rest of your life, who would it be?
See, that's a tough one to call because it depends on what mood you're in, really.
Right.
But if I had to listen to one the rest of my life, can I give you one of three?
You can.
It'd be either, one of four. It'd be either the Beatles.
Three is as many as I'm going to take.
Beatles, the Stones, Motown, or Springsteen. That'd be it.
Springsteen, okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised a little bit.
Oh, really? Who'd you think?
I thought Elvis might make his way
I love
into the
Elvis, yeah.
conversation. But, and the thing about Elvis is so many different genres that he was involved in.
Man, I do this thing on Smash Daily, and it's called Elvis Every Day because everybody loves Elvis. And
They do.
all you ever hear of Elvis on major radio, let's call it, is the same like 12 songs. Because, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, let me be your teddy bear, all the great songs. But I'm looking and I'm finding songs I never heard of before that Elvis did, man.
It makes me think of how different radio would be if guys like me, station managers, would have just let the talent pick the songs. It would have been so much better, in my opinion, because the managers, station managers, program directors, the Beatles are another good example of that, I think, where they go, there's so many good Beatles songs, but...
It wasn't one of the first things I told you.
You're not playing Hey Jude.
Hey Jude. I ain't going to play Hey Jude. Because I used to work at these stations, and it's like, it's time for the Beatles. Hey Jude. Okay, a beautiful song. But how many times you going to play Hey Jude? There are so many other great Beatles songs. And so that's what I try to do whenever I play Beatles, play some of the other songs, because I tell you what, if you were a Beatles fan back in those days, you heard all those other songs. And you're telling me all you're going to let me hear anymore is Hey Jude? Terrible.
It just would have expanded the playlist so much instead of just the top 25 hits or top 40 hits.
Well, I'm appreciative to be, honestly, in this, what I consider really one of the grandest places I've ever been, because I really, really like doing what I'm doing. And I, for the first time in my life, ain't doing it because I need the money. I'm doing it because I really like it. And I did it for the money before. I liked it too. But I had family support. I was supporting 7 people. And so you need to make X amount of dollars. I just support myself now. And so I can really enjoy what I'm doing because you gave me the grace to say, hey, this guy has some rock and roll experience. I think he knows songs. So I don't play any crazy stuff, right? I play
You might even know more than me, which is...
Wow, I didn't know you knew that much.
I don't.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I'm just glad to be I was on the Big Z for a while there, and then to be able to go on over to the music station after it opened up and play the music that I grew up with, really. 60s and 70s, a bit of the 50s, slice of the 80s. Just fantastic, man. Just a fantastic station. And the parts that I don't pick, those songs are great anyhow, Yeah. And it's just a really great station. I'm really graced and honored to be a part of it. And I ain't saying that to stroke, because I never stroked nobody. I never did, because I didn't care, because if you don't, I just never did.
At least me. I mean, you don't need to.
Oh yeah, but I'm glad to be where I am, glad to be amongst the people I am, and glad to be, in all honesty, with the technology that I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was working DC 101, and they were changing records to CDs. And I don't know how many guys quit the station, 3 or 4 guys, because they were either pissed or I don't know how to work this stuff. I always had a man versus machine thing. Remember when I first started?
Yeah, that was fun.
But I learned to work it, because I knew if you weren't playing the CDs, you weren't going to be on the air, because you got to know how to play them. So I learned CDs. Once you learn them, of course, why didn't you learn it earlier? Same thing with downloading and all that kind of stuff that they do now. So you got to learn the technology. Technology allows you to really be as big, if not bigger, than what you even thought you could be. A guy asked me one time, he says, man, what is it with these kids, and all they're doing is playing music and instruments on their computers? I said, he said, what do you think about that? I said, I think it's just a new instrument, the computer.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like having a piano, only it's not a piano, it's the new instrument. So you got to go with the flow, otherwise the river will drown you.
Couple minutes left. We probably are not going to do enough.
I don't want to quit talking.
I know. We're probably not going to do enough justice to this, but I don't think we'd be telling the whole story of the Smash if we didn't talk a little bit about your faith story and talk a little bit about the People's Praise Party and the role that faith has played in your life.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to say, one of the things when we first got saved, I got saved before my wife got saved. She got mad at me Well, come I didn't say, well, you weren't around. So anyway, she wound up getting saved. And I just needed something to hold on to that wasn't of the real. I needed the different real in the spirit. And so when I was able to grasp what God could do for you, when I was able to apply what God could do for you to me, I became a better human being. Yeah, I cuss and carry on sometimes, and I know all kinds of Christians that do, but you carry on because you know one thing. You believe in Jesus. You believe in what the Lord can do for you. If you ease up your cussing, bravo. If you ease up your drinking, your thievery, whatever your deal is, you know, bravo. But I am a normal guy, and I am not ashamed to say I love Jesus and what Jesus has done for me. I go by Psalm 118:17 for the People's Praise Party. That is the basis of the People's Praise Party, and that is, I will live to tell the world what the Lord has done for me. And yeah, I used to do, when people heard me first doing the People's Praise Party, which is just great gospel music, Negro spirituals, as they were once called, Appalachian Mountain Gospel, Southern Baptist, just everything, contemporary Christian. Guy says to me, well, what about the Smash Adult Party games? I said, well, that's what I was. That's not what I am anymore. And I'm not a perfect being. Lord knows I'm not perfect. I'll know I'm perfect if I get through them pearly gates. Nobody knows until the time does come. All I know is I can be the best that I can be. And that's what I try to do, holding a standard to the way I conduct myself as to how the Lord wants you to conduct yourself. And I understand, because I know I'll catch some grief. Well, you cuss too much. Well, you know, I consider it a part of the vernacular. I never use the Lord's name in vain. Nothing like that. But part of the vernacular is language like that because it gets you through to somebody you may not have been able to get through to. It's almost like Jesus going to the lepers, all right? You got to know how to fit in with the lepers if you're going to get them to come to the Lord. Well, you got to know how to fit in with folks if you're going to get them to believe that you believe in the Lord. So that's the way I play, and the Lord will decide when the time does come.
Well, this was so much fun. I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad that you're with My Mix 94.3
Yeah, I'm
Big Z
glad.
Media, and we're really blessed to have you. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
You're not going to take that T-shirt and wash your car with it after this,
Absolutely
are you?
not.
Okay, it's a
Might
gift
wear
for
it to
me.
work
It's
tomorrow.
a gift for me.
I know it's treasured. Smash Daily.
Oh, yes.
My Mix 94.3, 6 to 9 a.m. every morning. Also the People's Praise Party.
That's it.
Easy for me to say. 5 to 6 on Sundays on the Big Z, and 7 o'clock in the morning now on My Mix.
Yeah.
We're moving to the morning.
Pretty good, man. Just before church, get everybody ready for church.
Right on.
Especially if you ain't going to church, this is church.
Exactly.
Yep.
Smash, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.